Thank you both for coming today. Lizzie is such a joy to have in our class, and I'm excited to get to talk to you guys about all that she has been working on. She really is such a good student. She stays on task. She follows the class rules. She is always one of the first ones to raise her hand to answer a question or to volunteer. She's kind to her classmates, and she really is a good example to all of them. And she has been working so hard this year, and I'm excited to get to show you guys some of the great progress that she is making and all of the progress that she's making this year. So we were able to do several assessments in order to get a really good idea of where Lizzie is and what her strengths and weaknesses are in order to inform my instruction and to help us know where we can go in the future in order to help Lizzie be the best that she can be. Lizzie has a lot of strengths, like I said. She is a fluent reader. She likes to read. She knows her initial and final consonants. She knows her alphabet well. She is a really good student when it comes to literacy. But one of her biggest strengths in literacy is her ability to comprehend what she reads. You can clearly see this in the retelling assignments that I gave her. The retelling assignment is where she read a book out loud, and once she was finished, I asked her to tell me what happened in the book. If she was unable to give me any information about the book, I would ask questions to prompt her thinking, such as what happened at the beginning, who are the characters, what was the main problem. And the purpose was just to see how well she comprehended what she read. So after each book, I asked her to tell me what they were about. One of the books was called Babies, and she was able to tell me that it was about what babies can do, and she was able to give me specific examples from the book about how they can sit and crawl, and she was able to give me those responses without any prompting or further questioning. Another book that we read was called Pat at the Park, and I asked her to tell me about this book, and she was able to tell me several things, again without any prompting, that Pat liked to do at the park, such as playing and going down the slide. I then asked her if she could say any more activities that Pat liked to do at the park, and she was able to come up with a couple more activities that she remembered from the book. So it was impressive that she was able to recall even more than what she initially told me. The last book was called Who Works Here, and this was the most challenging book for Lizzie. She was unfamiliar with a lot of the words and had to do her best to sound out several words. However, when I asked her what the book was about, she was able to tell me that it was about different jobs that people have. I then asked her to tell me about some of the jobs that it talked about in the book, and she was able to remember painters, doctors, and teachers. I was really impressed that she was able to comprehend that book so well, even though a lot of the words were unfamiliar and new to her. Another one of Lizzie's strengths is using proper sentence structure in her writing, specifically using capital letters, finger spaces, and punctuation when appropriate. This is something that we have really been working on as a class, and she is doing a great job remembering to have those really essential elements. The writing sample rating scale assessment really helped me to see these abilities. So this assessment has me score students on their ability to use correct directional principles such as writing left to right, having spaces in between words, and on this scale, Lizzie scored a 5 out of 6, which is fantastic. Both her writing samples that I looked at included capitalization, finger spaces, text going from left to right, and punctuation. As she writes more extensive text, she will easily move up to a 6. But that is so she's doing really well on that area. Lizzie also does a great job at using phonics and phonemic awareness to spell. Lizzie uses these skills to write a lot of words that she's not familiar with. So in this sentence dictation assessment, this was an assessment where I read a sentence out loud. It was actually two sentences. I read them out loud and then reread them again slowly so she could write down as much of the story as she could. She wasn't assessed on if she spelled the words correctly, but rather if she was able to identify all of the sounds in a word. And from this assessment, I was able to see that she does really well at identifying different sounds in a word, and she's able to translate them into writing. On this test, there were 46 possible sounds that she could identify, and she was able to identify 42 of them. So that is really impressive, and she really is right where she should be, and she's getting really close to mastering that skill. With these strengths, there are things that I will do at school as well as things that you can do at home to keep fostering those abilities and help her continue to build and work on those strengths. So for comprehension, one of the things that I will do is that during our guided reading time, I'll ask Lizzie specific questions about the content of the books that she reads. So for example, if we read a book about the ocean, I'll ask her to tell me some of the facts that she learned from the book about an animal that lives in the ocean. And so I will continually do that every time that we do guided reading. And something that you can do at home is you can frequently ask Lizzie to tell you about what she is reading. You can ask her to tell you about characters, setting, plot, her favorite part, things that she thinks are funny or interesting, really anything else that will help her recall and retell what she is reading. For sentence structure, something that I will do in school to help continue to have her strengthen that ability is that during our literacy block, we'll write 2 to 3 sentences in our journals each day, and I will make sure to check specifically for capital letters, finger spaces, and punctuation. And I'll make sure that if she doesn't have all 3 of those elements, that she goes back and fixes them before she turns in her journal. And something that you can do at home is that you can encourage Lizzie to write little notes or letters, or really anything, send those letters to family members or friends. And anytime she writes at home, just again check for those 3 main elements. Check to make sure she uses capital letters, finger spaces, and punctuation where appropriate. And that would be a really great way to keep building that ability. For phonics and phonemic awareness, something that I will do at school to help her with that strength is during our literacy block, we'll work on blending and segmenting sounds through activities and instruction. Those are really important skills. And I will encourage Lizzie to sound out words that she may not know as she writes rather than simply telling her how to spell it. I think as she takes the time to really think hard about how this sounds in a word and how they could be spelled, that will really help her in that ability. And something that you can do at home is that you can play simple games with her that will help her, recognize the sounds in a word and help her connect those to letters. So games that you could do would include having her clap the syllables in a word, having her say words that rhyme back and forth, or substitute sounds. So substituting sounds is where you could say, if I change the M in Matt to an H, what word is it? And then she would have to tell you the new word. So those are some of her strengths that she has that we can continue to foster and help her improve on. Lizzie really is doing a great job, and there are a few things that we can work on with her that she can improve on. So one area that Lizzie could work on is her high frequency words. These are words that are extremely common, so it's easier to know them rather than having to decode them each time they come across the word. I was able to see this in an area that she needs. I was able to see that this is an area that she needs to work on from one of the running records that I gave her. The word "this" was repeated 3 times, and she was unable to decode it each time. Also, when I gave her the sentence dictation assessment, which was where I read a couple sentences and had her write them down, the word "will" came up 2 times, and she was unable to write that word either times as well. So, knowing these high frequency words, knowing how to read them and write them, will help her to really become a fluent reader and writer. So this is important that we work on these and help her to become more familiar with those high frequency words. Another area that Lizzie could work on is determining if a word makes sense in a sentence. So for example, in one of the running records that I gave her, the sentence in the book said he works with friends, and Lizzie read he works with fire, which obviously doesn't make sense. And so while she did get the initial consonant right, she didn't check and make sure that the word made sense in the sentence. And so it's important that she learns to monitor her reading and check to make sure that what she is reading does make sense. She is able, like I said, to comprehend books and stories as a whole, but I think this will even help even more to comprehend what she is reading. So things that we can do to help Lizzie improve in these areas. With high frequency words, something that I will do is I'll continue to focus on a new high frequency word each week. I'll point out high frequency words during shared reading activities, and really we have a word wall in the classroom with all of the high frequency words, and I will direct her to those words and just help her to become more familiar with them. And at home, something that you can do is you can play a matching game with high frequency words. So you can write them on a card and turn them over and have her match the words together. Some of the high frequency words that you could do would be this, the, will, she, he, see, and things like that that are just used really frequently in everyday language. And that would be a fun way to learn those high frequency words and also allow you to do a fun activity together. And then for determining if a word makes sense in a sentence, something that I will do is during literacy, I will teach self-monitoring skills such as self-correcting and pausing to make sure that what she reads makes sense. And I will make sure that she does those things as she reads out loud with me. And at home, something that you can do is you can have her read out loud to you and watch for times that she may use the wrong word in a sentence. And then encourage her to go back and reread that sentence and have her ask herself if that makes sense or not. So those are just a couple things that she can work on and that we can support her in doing. But overall, Lizzie really is doing such a fantastic job. She works hard and has so many strengths. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me, and feel free to call me if you have any questions or concerns about Lizzie, but you should really be proud of the great student that she is.